That ain't gonna work though, because I'm gonna start moving around and we're gonna have hair flying. And...
Hello, friends, and welcome.
Are you gonna do your dramatic introduction?
Welcome to this week's Hunt Breakdown. There you have it. On today's video, we're gonna be watching Zach's spot and stalk hunt for the Nebraska buck. The one that you stalked up on him in his bed. We're about to walk you guys through the hunt. Just give them some context here, what's going on, Zach.
I guess the hunt really started the first day that we spotted him, and that was the first day we went into this new piece. We'd been hunting other areas, and we were in the library one day, decided, you know, hey, this piece looks pretty sweet. I was just floating around on Onyx, and I saw that it was close to our camp. We decided to go check it out. And we were like, well, we'll just cruise through this thing real quick and see if it looks like, you know, deer in here. And we had actually talked to the landowner that owned the surrounding property, and he actually gave us permission. Super, you know, super Nebraska, Nebraska of him. You know, we talked to him for quite a while, but he said that it didn't seem like there was a lot of people hunting back there yet. It was like September 2nd, I think, when we went in. And first thing Logan and I do is get into the parking lot and see that there's like no tracks going down that access path.
So nobody had been in there.
No, nothing that we could tell looked fresh. So we drove down that access path. A small buck jumps out of there. I managed to get footage of him. We ended up seeing another doe, and I was like, hey, like, this is good enough. Like, let's get this thing turned around, go back, and like we were stoked to shoot that smaller buck that jumped
8-pointer or whatever.
So we were like, we're gonna swing right back in here, come back in tonight and hunt. Ended up going up, turning around, and Logan and I kind of got stuck.
Okay, just let's get out of here. Oh yeah, we're making a total scene here. Try to get out of here as fast as possible. Just kick her in 4 and get out.
And he couldn't really get up the hill, and he has a loud exhaust, so it's going. And right as we like start to get up the hill, and we're like kind of, you know, laughing about it, he goes like this, and I go like this. And I just have, I mean, he saw it better than I did, but he's like, huge buck,
huge buck.
Holy, oh my god, dude.
Oh my god. What?
Oh my gosh, dude. Holy cow. Dude. We gotta figure out where we're at on a map here.
We totally lost our minds because like it was a huge buck.
Yeah.
The second biggest buck I've ever seen in that area, you know, at all.
And come to find out, it's the same deer that you eventually shoot.
Yeah. So we ended up like hunting there that night, seeing that smaller buck. He came right back into the bedding area, which was what we were hoping for. And then we ended up hunting it the next morning, Greg and I did. We didn't see much except for another hunter. So we were like, well, let's give it a little break. There was another buck that we were on. Spooked him the other buck we were on, spooked him a couple days later. And then that night we were trying to come up with a plan. Decided to go back in here where we had just jumped these.
And this is on the 5th of September, midday.
Yep. You know, going into this, I remember I was kind of grumpy about that morning, but I was like, we're not gonna mess around and like crawl into this bedding area and hunt and set up unless we know there's deer in there. So the whole plan was to crawl up, glass it, wait till even just an ear flicker would have been like, okay, good enough. There's still deer in here, but I didn't want to put all the cards into that one bedding area. If other people had been hunting it and
right, because it's only holding a couple of deer.
Oh yeah, I think it was holding 3 or 4 deer, a couple bucks and a doe or 2. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to waste any more time because we're on day 5 at this point.
Yeah, you're coming down to the end of the hunt.
Yep, and that's where it starts getting stressful. Now, what was cool is we went in that night, and there's tracks going in, and right before I got those tire tracks, got to that bedding area, they backed up and left. And then past that, like what we're seeing right here, it's like
fresh
deer tracks on it, like no tire tracks, no boot tracks.
That's either. Immediately telling you that these things haven't been messed with since we bumped them out here.
Feeling better about it for sure. Like definitely spirits are rising at this point right here because I'm like, oh man, there's like this a lot of tracks.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's just like coyotes and stuff too, but no human sign.
Right.
So I basically crawled up to that highest point, right up that access path.
How close is this to where you bumped the buck?
Where my body is when I spot him is exactly where we were coming back up the hill. Yeah. So we're like on the highest point above that bedding area. And it's also the point where I think the deer spot you when you go walking over that path.
Right.
But
But
You
now
know.
you know that, and that's why you're sneaking over
And I'm
there.
crawling, I'm using that little bit of terrain
Right.
to hide behind,
Yeah.
get up and over. And I mean, at this point, all I'm looking for is any sign that there's a deer present in that bedding area at all. And then I had some ideas of where we could dive in and get closer. But again, I just didn't want to risk it and not go hunt that bedding area if there's no deer in there. So I figured if I spend enough time there, I'll eventually see an ear flicker or a tail flicker or see some sort of deer. And then got lucky.
That bedding area is not very big.
So
to begin
you,
with.
And it's super thick, so like they're in there, but they move around and they can browse in there because it's like it's nothing but browse. Like they can stand up and they move around and that stuff. I was probably there for 15 minutes and I was just picking apart every little thing that I could see. Eventually the sun kind of hit a little bit different and the wind picked up and it moved that stuff that he's bedded in.
and his antlers didn't move.
And it glowed.
Yeah.
It was a needle in a haystack. I mean, I got lucky, but it was just, I think, setting my mind to that though and being patient. And it was immediately like, okay, let's get some footage. And then I'm like, when I'm watching him there,
How far away is he?
70 yards.
Oh yeah, so he's right there, right by the road.
But he's got a big creek that you can't really cross between him and us. And at this point, I didn't take a lot of time on it, but I really thought and I really paid a lot of attention to the fact that, okay, this is the direction he's facing. Here's how the wind's flowing through that creek bottom. And I really watched how all the wind around him was moving. One thing that was tricky then, when I had to crawl down that access path, he could see me. But I just stayed low and I got sand.
You just move slow and
Sand all over. Once I got down the access path, it was like, honestly, it was one of the most grueling parts because in that road, I would pick myself up with my fingertips and push my body forward.
yeah.
With with your toes, you mean? Yeah.
Toes and fingertips.
Yeah.
And like, just push myself forward. That way I never got any elevation at all. Now, talk about sand in the crotch, in the wireless mic, in my eyes.
Yeah, it's in your release.
Yeah, it was in my release.
Yeah.
And then once I got to, I guess, a wall of cover, it was just picking a deer trail that, I could stay quiet and low and try to tunnel my way through. And as I'm crawling through that grass, the biggest factor was there was just enough breeze that you could tell, like, I could cover my movements with that wind. And what I would do is I'm on a deer trail, which is already matted down. And I would push my bow through that grass. Every time the wind would blow, I'd push my bow through the grass. And then if the wind would stop, I could just slowly do that same thing where I'm like pushing my body up into that spot. So I would do that I did that for a really long time. And then eventually got to that cedar. And this is the part that I didn't really mention much. I got to that cedar, knocked an arrow. And I mean, at this point, I'm being
He's super quiet.
unbelievably particular. I'm not
because
ever
you're
this focused
20
in
yards.
anything else.
Yeah.
So I get my arrow knocked, and I slipped around to the left side of the tree, and I could see him, and I was like, "Son, he's close."
Yeah, he's
closer
right
than
there.
I thought he'd ever be.
Yeah.
And I hit him once, 19. Hit him twice, 19. Third time, 19. I'm like, good enough.
Yeah.
So
He's in top pin range.
So I just had this little hole on the left side of that cedar, and I just kept that arrow on him and was like, as soon as he starts to flinch, I'm going to draw, because I had no shot. He was too low. I couldn't have shot at. All I could see was his head and his antlers and his about
Too
this
much
of his
brush
face.
and stuff. Yeah.
He was just bedded so low.
Yeah.
So then, as soon as I got there and got set up, I hear, and then thrashing, and little buck starts coming in. And at this point, I'm starting to kind of panic, because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I got to,
Little buck sees Logan.
He sees Logan,
Yeah.
Had the situation been slightly different, and
If that
buck
was the
wasn't
only buck in there, you would have shot him.
Well, you tried to shoot that buck
two nights prior,
two nights prior, yeah, or would have shot him.
I was just about drawn, and he got
Caught your wind,
Yep.
right?
45 in closing.
Yeah.
Now at this point though, and Logan asked me later, he's like, "Were you gonna shoot that little buck?" And it was like, dude, I really would have, except for the fact that if he would have been 35, the bigger one, I would have shot the little one.
Right.
But he's 19, so it's like, I think I'm gonna get a chance.
Yeah.
And at this point, little buck is, I'm not kidding
He's
you guys,
looking
he's
at
7 yards away from me, and I can
Right.
hear him going, when he's putting his head down like that, I can hear him.
Yeah.
And he eventually, like, he could see outlines of those ghillie suits, but he couldn't tell what we were because we were just blobs of, like, we were different blobs than he was used to seeing, but he didn't know what they were. Now,
the little buck works off, and the big
buck
buck stands up.
Yeah, so here was something that, like, you can't see in the footage either. This was the stupidest thing I did the whole time. I'm really pleased with everything that I did leading up to this point. But for some reason, you know, thinking about cameras, I thought I better check Logan one time to make sure he's not, like, freaking out saying the batteries are down. Just I don't know, dumb. I shouldn't have cared at this point anyway. But it just went through my head, and I slowly looked up at him. And I don't know if I, like, sensed it or I heard him or what, but as soon as I looked at Logan, he started to get up. And as soon as he started to get up, I was like, I'm too late. Like, I messed it up. I literally messed this up. Because as soon as he started to flinch, I wanted to be drawing.
Right.
When he did stand up, I thought, well, it's now or never.
Yeah.
If he takes one step, you can see what he's in. I can't shoot him.
Yeah, he's super thick in there.
So,
like, and he's getting ready. You let loose of the arrow at the moment that he's preparing to take off out of there.
And then I totally lost my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like right there's like total relief of just like
running Zach.
Yeah. You just totally bulldoze Logan here.
stuff's
I don't know if that was a camera battery or a camera or what it was.
You know, you're 2 hours into it.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing but focus.
Yeah,
it was like
a lot of emotion built up into that.
Oh, man.
I think that was probably the most fired up I've ever been on one, just because it was like, you know, it was so intense for so long. And I mean, the little buck, all those factors, and you know, the crawl in general was just really intense, and it hurt. It was painful. It was uncomfortable. I was hot. I mean, unbelievably hot. But you know, you got to just turn your mind off at that point. It's like you have to be completely separate from the uncomforts of the crawl, because it's gonna suck. Like sandburrs, cactus.
You can't think about time or anything. You have to be totally focused on the situation. That's very similar to the last hunt we were looking at with that buck we were stalking on, Greg.
Anytime you're in a stalk
real
like
close.
that.
When you're on the ground and in these bedding areas and it's super thick and high stem count stuff, that's the issue. That's the problem that Greg had on that last hunt.
Yep.
You know, like you said, on this one, if he takes one step, you're done. That one that me and Jake were at full draw on the ground at 10 yards.
Thing.
Like, there's one tiny hole that you're trying to get it in there.
But again, the biggest thing when you're on the ground, you have to really practice stuff like that when you're shooting. So when you're shooting in the yard, practice on the ground, practice in grassy stuff, practice in whatever the situation you may be hunting in, and that's going to help your shots.
You're talking about those sandburrs and like being uncomfortable, and I was just thinking about that mule deer stalk. And like how miserable that was trying to get close to that thing. You know, and in both situations, it's like if that little buck doesn't come up there, your confidence is like sky high. You're just waiting for it to happen. And then all of a sudden, a wrench gets thrown and things, and the little buck is there. The same thing happened to me and Greg with that mule deer buck. Like, we could have walked right up on that thing, but the does got me before I could get there.
Well, and I think, you know, it's
just factors that they're out of your control. When you're bow hunting, you've just got to put yourself in the situation and then wait for it all to come together.
One thing
sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
It's never perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but if you can try to put yourself into a position where, like, in this situation, I got behind that cedar, just like you guys did on the stalk in here in Iowa, you know, on the buck that you guys saw. You guys were using those cedars in that cut, in that shadow. Here behind me in this hunt, the sun was going down behind me. The cedars in front of me. I got brushy habitat on this side. Like, I'm completely covered, so that saved me when that little buck came in.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think the point is, like, moving cover to cover.
Yeah, cover to cover.
Same thing when you strike up a turkey and you're caught out in the wide open and he's right there and you thought, I should have been next to a tree.
Yep.
Like, it's just, got to think of those little details.
Got to think before it happens, too, and that's the important part. We're always thinking, like, 2 steps ahead. It's like, okay, I'm going to get here, but if I need to get up there, I'm going to get to there. And I think that's what makes it break.
You got to be at the cover there.
Yep.
Yeah. the ghillies help, but like there's nothing that's going to erase you from
No.
the environment if you're just in the wide
No.
open.
And you could do
You
that
always
without
have
a
to use
ghillie
cover.
suit too, but you got to just be really conscious of where these deer, you know, can see you, and you're basically out in the open.
Yeah. You guys eventually go on somewhat of a rodeo track job, but find the buck and
Yeah, that could be a whole nother video. Though.
Yeah.
The shot and the track job could be a whole nother video, but for the sake of time, we're just kind of focusing on, you know, your thought process for the stock, which was pretty incredible.
yeah, it's
Well,
a great buck. It's a sweet hunt.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like one of the most fun things. I mean,
corn dogs out there too.
yeah.
I bet that was fun.
Oh yeah, no, it was great having those guys around. Honestly, that hunting in, you know, Nebraska was the first place, you know, the year prior that I had ever been to out of state for deer.
Yeah.
And you know, it's always going to be special to me for that regard. Like that memory of hunting with Jake and Brody that first year is like, it's such a great memory, you know. And that, I mean, that buck up there shot with those guys, and like that stuff is super fun to hunt. I love it. I love that open stuff, and I mean that hunt just really capped off the 2 years of being there. It's awesome. I mean, I could do that. I could do that every day of my life.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet.
It's real fun.
That's another hunt breakdown in the books.
Hey, and also one last thing. If you see one, go get him.
Yeah.
He's there for the picking. Go shoot him.
Go get him.
Don't wait
that
around.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Like when we're doing these ground hunts, you see one common theme. It's like when we see them, it's green light.
to 'em.
You gotta go. You gotta go. Then throw your worries and concerns out the window.
If he's not
be
coming
smart
your
about
way,
it and
get
get
to him.
there. Yeah. Hopefully you guys liked it.
Thanks for watching.